everybody, Happy New Year! I see I have 0 viewers, and that's okay. It's the day after New Year's Day, and some of you may be, you know, vacationing or visiting family and friends. And if you are, I support that. So, oh, I do have Guild ASG 53. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Today I'm kicking off the first of 3 different style pants drafts. Thank you for watching Guild ASG 53. I think it's just you and me right now. It's quiet today. Oh, no, here comes Stacy. Welcome. Hello, hello. Oh, hi, Dawn. Hi, Dawn. How are you? And Shelby and Kathy and Zelda and Melissa. Hello, hello, hello. I'm very excited about this series because, hi Debbie from Cincinnati, welcome. Oh, hi Lynn, first time on live chat, welcome, welcome. This is so much fun. I'm here most Fridays at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and January is going to be the month of pants drafting. I'm super excited, and I'm throwing in a 4th method that I'm going to surprise you with later. So just so you know, there's going to be a 4th method as a bonus that I'm excited to try as well. So this is getting better and better. Oh, Karen's watching me on TV. That might be frightening if I'm on TV. Someone sent me a picture of their living room, and they had this ginormous TV mounted on the wall, and there I was. And like, I don't know, it had to be bigger than 72 inches. It was gigantic. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of me. But I am excited you guys are here. I'm excited for today. Oh, Dawn says, goody on the 4th method. Yes. And Chilwack, BC. Okay. I'm assuming you're saying it's a Chilly Willy in British Columbia. That's what I'm guessing that means. Hi, Barbara. Welcome. Happy New Year to you as well. Hi, Marla Hannah from Colorado. Hey, Victoria. Welcome. All right, this is going to be really exciting. I'm very excited. Oh, we have Linda Mead from South England. Welcome. All right, so Stacy's asking, does anyone have live video yet? If you're watching me, I am live right now, so I hope you can see me. All right, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do the Jan Minott method, and there is a link in the description of this video for to go to Rylas's sewing and design school, where she has the rights to sell the digital copies of these books. So if you want to follow along with me, you know, you certainly can. And I'm very happy to announce that the price of the digital copies are very reasonable. They're like $21. So if anyone wants to follow along with me, it's Pants and Skirts Patterns by Jan Minott. That's what I'm working with. Hey, Mary. Oh, Mary just got off the treadmill. Well, I have exciting news about my exercise for today. My daughter Anna and I went for a hike with the dogs, and I might have not explained clearly where we were actually going to go, because she didn't realize until it was too late that we were actually going all the way up to the summit and then hiking back down the backside back to the parking lot. But she did it, and it was amazing. So we had a really fun hike this morning, my daughter and I. Very fun. Do you want to come over and say hi?
I'm good.
No, she doesn't want to come over and say hi, but she did a really good job.
My makeup on.
So there you go. All right, so let's see. Hey, Kim from Seattle, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Happy New Year. And Janie from Missouri, welcome. And Carolyn Vines from Nashville, welcome, welcome. All right, so hello, Geetha, welcome, welcome. Oh, All right, so Dawn is resurrecting her Minott books from college somewhere. I think I have the other one too, but I did find the pants book. Oh my goodness, Stacy still wants to know about live video. We are live, Stacy. I don't know. Maybe get out of your browser and I'm gonna hold on. Let me just chat to her. Hi, Stacy. We are live now. If you can't see the live, maybe try closing your browser and come back to my YouTube channel. All right, so hey Carla, good to catch up with you too, and everybody else. Happy New Year, wonderful. All right, so Dawn, I really hope you can find your other book in book form. I will tell you, if you try to find these printed copies, they're very hard to find, and if you do find them, they're hundreds of dollars because they've been out of print for such a long time. So I feel blessed that I have copies, but you know, it's the kind of thing where the digital copy will work just as well. All the information is in there, but I do feel blessed to have the, you know, the vintage versions of these books. All right, so, oh, Geetha, yes. Hi, Geetha. Okay, yay, this is so exciting. All right, so we got to get started because this is going to be a busy one. The way the Jan Minott method starts to draft pants is with a hip block. Now, a hip block is basically a pattern that fits you from the waist to the full hip. That's it. It's the base for skirts and it's the base for their pants draft. So what I want to do first is I'm just going to show you here. I'm going to switch my view. Oh, wait a minute. Chilliwack is the name of my city name derived from native word river. Oh, that's so funny. I thought you were trying to say it was wacky chilly out there. Hey, Pat, Happy New Year. And, oh, Geetha's from Canada too. Geetha, maybe you know DK, British Columbia. You guys might be close. I don't know. Now that I said that out loud, I hope I'm not embarrassing myself with my lack of geography skills. Anna, is British Columbia and Canada close?
Well, British Columbia
is Canada. All right, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to embarrass myself. My daughter won a geography bee in high school, so she's in the background giving me little hints. Come over and say hi, Anna. Wait, Anna's going to come over and say hi.
Yep.
This is my daughter, Anna. Here she is.
Hi, everyone.
I love her. She hiked with me today. She did such a good job. Get in the frame, honey.
There's a giant camera. Oh.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. Get over here.
Hi.
Right, here she is, and she is my model for my some of my new sizing. We did a raglan for her. She wore it on the hike today. It was very comfortable, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite shirt.
Favorite shirt. So there you go. So
All
right. She's gonna go now, but she just wanted to say hi. All right. Thank you, Anna. That's my smarty. She's very smart. All right. Let's go. Here we go. Oh, Mary says she saw you last spring, Anna. She did at the pants fitting. Oh, yeah. Barbara says Happy New Year, Anna. Oh, and Lynn is from Ontario, Canada, just across the border from Michigan.
That's not close to British.
Oh, Stacy says Anna is your mini me. And Kathy says hi, Anna. Yay! All right. Now let me switch my view back to this. So what I want to show you here is one of the things that I'm doing during this drafting series is I am drafting in half scale, and the reason why I'm doing that is because it's easier for you to see. The entire draft is only this big when I do it in half scale, so that's why I'm in half scale. But I was able to convert my half scale. This is what the hip block. These are what my hip block pattern pieces look like in half scale. Then I went into my software and I made, let me just move this out of the way for a second. I made full size hip blocks by just enlarging them 200%. So if you take all of your measurements and you have them both vertically and horizontally, you're working at 50%. And then if you want to blow it up into 100%, you just, you know, blow them up by 200%, and that will give you the full size. So these are the full size pattern pieces I worked with. Okay, so first I drafted these, and we're going to draft them in a minute, but I just wanted to show you. This is my front hip block, this is my back hip block, and then I blew them up so I could try it on. I drafted the first version of the pants without testing the hip block, and then it occurred to me I probably should have, and actually the instructions in the book say to obviously fit your hip block before you use it to make pants. So what I did was I sewed together my hip block, and it looked like this. Okay, and you can see here, this is my front. And one of the things that I like about the Jan Minott method is you make certain choices based on your shape. So there is some customizing and fitting along the way in your draft. And I thought that that was very cool. But just like everything else, even if you're getting information for your body type or your curve or your shape, it's not an exact science. So the benefit of doing the hip block first is you can fine tune the position of your side seam. So what I want you to notice here is, if you look, I'm going to turn it this way so you can see, look how much bigger the front was, this much bigger. So almost, I would say that's probably 3 inches bigger. And that ended up to be too much in the front. But if you take the time to do the hip block, then you can make adjustments. And you can see on my pattern, what I ended up doing here is I had to take off a 1/2 inch along the front waist, right? And then I added, I'm sorry, I took in the front because it was pulling to the back, obviously, because the front was too wide. And then in the back, I trimmed off that 1/2 inch. So basically what I did was I shifted the side seam forward at the top. It was pulling to the back. So I am going to do my new draft, and I'm going to make that adjustment. And you can see on my little half scales, you can see what I mean by working in half scale. This, let's make sure we're nice and sharp here. Just want to make sure you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, so this is a 1/4 difference. The real difference was a 1/2. So you can reliably go back and forth between half scale and full scale. This is what the finished block looks like. Okay, and then I just want to show you in here, if you're going to follow along and draft with me, there are some pages. I went in the beginning of the book to page 12. Now, the pages get numbered 1 through whatever several times. Like this pink section is the pink. This pink section is the pants draft section, and it starts with page 1 again over here. But then back here, at the very beginning, starts page 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And I highly recommend giving, if you're getting the book, I highly recommend giving this a read, because there's a lot of good information in here. And she tells you how to take your body measurements, and I'm going to go through the body measurements you need to have to draft the hip block and the pants. Pat is saying the block reminds me of the waistband for the Sorsha pattern. I widened it to accommodate me. Yep, I mean, it's very similar. I mean, obviously the hip block is going to be directly below the waistband, right? It's whatever is right below the waistband down. So it is a similar thing, but it's a really kind of a cool way to start your drafting. So what I did was I copied the page, this page right here, this measurement chart. It's on page 12. I copied this page, and you can see I did a lot of good work on that page. So what I did was I filled in all of the measurements that they asked for, and then if it needed to be a half measurement, like, first you get your circumference, but then when you start working, you divide it in half for half, and then you get a quarter, whatever it is. I did all of the math, and then I half scaled all of the numbers. So after I got the final number I wanted to work with, I halved it one more time so I would get the half scale size. So that's what I did on here. And it's a really good way to keep track of all of your measurements. There are a hip shape section, and I just want to point that out to you in the book. So basically, the hip shapes these are standard or average. One is standard. This is little difference, which means you have almost similar measurements. That's me. Then you have the diamond, which has a low full hip. And then there's a diamond with a circle in it, the rounded diamond, because you've got like a higher hip curve and then a lower hip curve. And then you have the heart shape, which has a very full high hip and very little full hip down lower near the crotch level. So those are the different shapes. And what Jan did to help with the draft is she's making some assumptions based on your shape that can help you customize your pattern. So for example, one of the things that she uses this for is to determine, for example, how big your crotch wedges need to be and different other things. And we'll get to those in a minute. Now, the way she identifies posture type is by comparing the front and back waist to floor measurements. So she's basically assuming if you have 1/8 of an inch to 5/8 of an inch less or shorter in the back, you have an average shape. If you have 3/4 of an inch or more shorter in the back, you have the THF, and THF means tilted forward. So you can see that means you're tilting forward and your waist is higher in the front. And then if you have the floor to waist is the same, or there's more length in the front, then you have a backward tilting waist. Okay, now here is the first thing I want to say about this. All of these things are guides, and all of these things will help you. My measurements put me in the backward tilted situation, but I do not have a tilt in my waist. So my back measurement, my back was 45 and my front was 43. So I had a 2-inch difference front and back, and I took the measurement myself, and then I had Anna help me, and we got similar measurements. So I'm really not sure about that. So I'm ignoring the fact that it's saying I'm having a backward, a tilted hip backward here. I'm not gonna, you can obviously look at these things and then make some decisions for yourself. So you might get some results that don't exactly jive with what's in the book, but that's how she gets the posture type. And then she does different amounts of ease at the hip based on your size and based on your shape. So standard hip size, if you're small sizes, 1 to 1.5, medium 1 to 1.5, and then large is 2 inches, and very large, she doesn't have anything there. So I'm guessing if you're very large, you could be more than 2 inches. And then she also adds, so that's the ease there. And then she also does the same thing for the waist. So I highly recommend, if you're going to give this method a try, read through this whole first section and kind of get an idea of what you're going to be looking for. Now, the waist division formulas, okay, that's where I decided I was going to do a 2-inch deviation, meaning I was going to make my front waist 2 inches wider than my back waist and somehow it ended up to be even bigger than that. But there are formulas that will help you figure out from your total waist what your back is and what your front is. All right, so you can, figure out for yourself what you need. I did the 2-inch division. And then there is a waist guide that you can make. And basically what it is the measurement of the top of the pattern minus what your dart intakes are going to be. I did not make one of these because I'm just using my regular gridded ruler. This works just as fine in my opinion, but if you want to make the waist guide, you certainly can do that. Okay, and then she gives you suggestions for how much dart intake, she calls it dart space. And then she has hip curve space. Now the hip curve space, what she's talking about is she's talking about how much space there is from the side seam at the hip to the side seam at the waist. So you can see in this picture here, I'm just going to color this. All of this would be my hip curve space. Okay, whatever's left over from your full hip up to your waist. Okay, so she has guides for that as well. And then here is an example of a completed front hip block. Notice there's darts in the front. I elected to not put darts in my front. If you want to have a dart in the front of your hip block, absolutely put it in. I went for a plain front. And then it's going to give you the skirt draft procedure for the front hip block, which we are going to do, and the back hip block. All right, and it looks like it's a lot of steps, but it's really, once you take all your body measurements and you fill out this chart, it's really fairly easy to do. So that's what we're going to start with first. So basically, I already drew my rectangles that correspond with my half scale. Let me just move this over here so it's smaller. Okay, so my half scale hip measurement with ease is already figured out, and my hip depth is already figured out, and I'm just going to show you here. So for me, my hip depth, my full hip depth from my waist to my full hip is 7.5. So this is 3 3/4 here. And then my hip circumference ended up being 21.5. And then I quartered that and I got 5 5/8, I believe. So this is 5 5/8. Oops, 5 5/8 from here to here. So what you do is you make 2 rectangles that are the hip depth and the quarter hip width with ease. And if you want to work for full scale, definitely do that. Again, you can see how much easier this is to have these smaller shapes to work with, so you can see what I'm doing. But basically, after you draw your rectangles, you're going to first figure out what your waist depth, and you're going to mark that at center front. So this is going to be my front, and this is going to be my back. So the difference between my front and back waist depth was a 1/2 inch in the back. So, oh, I'm sorry, it was, what was it? My half body, and then my, hold on, I want to make sure I tell you all the right things here. There's a lot of hip depth. Okay, so I had a 2-inch difference between my front and back waist to floor. So the difference, it was a 2-inch difference. So I made it 1 inch. I made it 1 inch, and it's 0 in the back. So the first thing I'm going to do here, and this kind of made it a little bit crazy. So I'm going to measure 1 inch here, and I think I actually decided that that was think I did a 1/2 inch actually. Let me just, yeah, I did a 1/2 inch. I think it should have been, waist depth should have been 1 inch, but also I think I decided that a 2-inch difference between my floor, from my waist to floor at 2 inches was a lot. So I think I decided to make it 1 inch difference. And then to half scale it, it was a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark that right here. That's the how much lower my waist is at my center front based on those waist to floor measurements. All right, Lazarus is saying, do they leave ease at the waist, like usually 3 centimeters or 1 3/8 inch when easing the top of the skirt to the waistband? Okay, I did not look to see how she sews it together, but she does give waist ease. Okay, so this is not the waistband we're working on now. This is just the waistline of the garment. So she recommends for ease between 1 inch to 2 inches depending on the size range. So 1 inch for small sizes and up to 2 inches for large and very large sizes. So there is ease built into all of these measurements. All right, so I got my front hip depth. So I did my rectangles. I did my hip depth. And then if I were going to be putting in a dart, I would measure from there and put that in. I am not putting a dart in. So basically, I know that my hip depth is, oops, I'm sorry. I know my hip depth is from here to here. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself a line. All right, wait a minute. Just want to make sure I don't want to forget anything. So I did my hip depth. Then I'm going to do my width. My waist width is half of the front waist measurement, including ease. So my front waist width is 5 5/8. Now, 5 5/8 is what I got at the hip, but remember, I fixed it. That's how I got confused. So I'm actually going to adjust those numbers and make it 1/4 inch less. So I'm going to go ahead and measure in 1/4 inch over here and mark that. Okay, so from center front to here is my waist measurement. And then I'm just going to go ahead and draw myself in a line like this. And I highly recommend, if you have a French curve, that's super helpful. So I'm just going to go ahead and just draw in that line nice and neat. Okay, and then just, I mean, this is pretty simple. The only other thing I need to do for the front is just go from nothing to here. So there is my front hip block. All right, so that's actually very easy. I don't have a dart. So in the back, what we're going to do is we're going to make the same rectangle, which I already have right here. Can you guys see? Let me just hold on a second. I just want to make sure the lighting is not bad on this. All right, I feel like that might be a little bit better. All right, so here's my back block. So you can either trace the front or just make 2 blocks that are the same. I have the same 5 5/8 hip down here. So this is my hip. This is my waist. This is my hip. Okay, so then the next step after you do that is you're going to mark the depth at center back. My depth at center back was 0, and actually it's going to be over here. This is my center front, center back, side seam. This is my side seam. Okay, so I had 0 here, so I'm not going to touch that. And then we're going to figure out the amount of dart that we needed. And I decided that I was going to do, and she gives you recommendations for your dart intake, and I think I decided to do 1 inch. So if you look at the dart information here, dart space, she gives you shapes. So, I mean, she gives you suggestions over here. So for little difference, it's 0 to 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and do a 1 inch dart. And since I have no difference between my hip depth at the side and my side seam, my top of my block is going to be straight. Like there's no difference here. So I decided to put my dart in the middle for now. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go with 2 3/4 would be about 2 3/4 would be about the middle. And I'm just going to go ahead and make if I was going to make a 1 inch dart on my pants, I'm only going to make a 1/2 inch dart here because I'm working in half scale. So I'm going to go ahead and make a 1/2 dart. And she recommends 3 inches. So I'm going to make mine 1.5 inches because that's the half of 3 inches for half scale. So there is my dart. Okay. And then what you need to do is you need to, so after you do that, the next step is when you get your dart, then you need to figure out what your, so my back waist was 4 3/8. Now that is the half scale version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from here to here. So this is 2.5, whoops. And my total thing is 4 3/8. So that means if this is 2.5 to here, then here I'm going to have 1, well, it would be 2. So 1 7/8 would put me, 1 7/8 would put me right here. Okay. But remember, I'm also going to add a 1/2 inch to that to fix, to fix my boo-boo that I made here. So remember, I added a 1/2 inch, which is 1/4 on half scale. So my real answer would then be 1/4 inch more, which would put me about here. And then the next step is I'm just going to go ahead and draw that in. So this would be my back hip block, and this right here is the space, or the hip curve space that she talks about is right here. And then in the front I have this much hip. So what I want to point out for you guys right now is these side seams look more similar than they did before I tested it. So when I first did my first block, this was just a straight line because the waist measured the hip, because I added the extra inch, to the waist in the front, and I took it away from the back. So I think if you take the time to, make yourself a hip block and then make sure your side seams are running straight up, that can help you fine tune, how much extra you've added to the front if you're going to do that. So these are my hip blocks, and I'm just gonna highlight the entire hip block in red because I need to trace it next. So these become the starting points for the pants draft. I'm just going to make them bold here so I can see through my paper. All right, so that's how you make a hip block. So if you're going to make a full-size hip block, cut them on the fold. So this is cut on fold. Well, I would cut on fold in the back, and you can add, if you want to add an allowance in the front so you can pin it up the front, you can do that. So go ahead and add a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And then you're going to have to obviously add seam allowances to the side. But if you're not going to cut on fold, you're going to cut 2. This one you're going to cut on fold. Okay? And that's how you can get a quick hip block to work with to test. So does anyone have any questions about the hip block? If you do, pop those in the comments and I'll answer you. And if not, I'm going to move on to using these to draft the pants. So now I'm going to, oh, and by the way, after you do your hip blocks, she gives you suggestions for different shape darts and how to customize the shape. And, you know, if you end up with a big divot, you know, there's a lot of really good information here about fitting this hip block if you need to. Hey, RT Blades, welcome. Happy New Year. And then, you know, she goes through a lot of, you know, how to fix for asymmetrical figure. And then she shows you how to take that hip block and make it into a skirt. So if you like skirts, you can use the hip block to make a skirt. And then she also has a whole bunch of information about testing the fit of your skirt, you know, based on what it's doing. So basically that is the hip block we need. Here's an interesting thing. You can take the hip block and make it into culottes. So I don't know if you remember me saying that if you're making a really wide leg pant, and then you want to make a really easy pair of pants, culottes would be, see for culottes, look at what you're doing. You're just adding big wedges there, you know, big crotch extensions front and back. They're not going to touch your body, but you can make a split skirt or a culotte very easily from your hip blocks. All right, so now I'm going to go to the pants draft. And so we're starting with the hip block to make the pants. I filled out all the measurements I needed, but I just want to point out to you here that I printed out there are some charts here you can print. Hold on. Where did I see the other things that I printed? Okay, so there's a pants fitting chart that's really helpful if you want to print that out. And then I printed out, well, I guess that's all well, let me see what I printed out. I printed out the pants fitting chart. I printed out the personal reference chart for pants, but it's basically the same thing as the skirt one, or almost the same thing. So I didn't bother filling this out, although looking at it, it probably would have been more helpful if you fill out this personal reference chart to keep going. I kept all the information on this one page, but if you fill it out for pants here, I think that would be helpful because it'll just be clearer. And then after you draft your pants, this is how to adjust your pattern, and she calls it coding. That's what she calls it, to adjust a pattern if it doesn't fit you right. So I did make a copy of that because we may use that after we draft. And then I also printed out the comparison chart for writing your pants code. And we'll get into this stuff later. And here's a pants code chart. So what I may end up doing is after we do the month of January, I may in fact, do some fitting with these depending on how that works out. So I have my hip block, and then I'm going to go back to the start of the pants draft information right here. And the way she does this is she will go back and forth. She'll say, do it to the front, do it to the back, do it to the front, do it to the back. I'm just going to skip over and do the front or the back. Maybe I'll do the back. And then the procedure is the same for the front. But what I want to do is I've already done these drafts, so I kind of want to point out to you, you know, some of the things here. This top section, from here to here, from here to here, that's your hip block. And then you draft everything below. So this is what my completed front looks like. And this is what my completed back looks like. Okay. And there's some really interesting things that happen in this draft that feel, you know, very fitting to me. So I think I'm going to, well, you can't work with the X section until you have them both done because you're comparing the length of the crotch from, you know, knee to crotch, front and back, and then you're lowering the back a little bit. And there's a chart for that. But let's just get started. Let's see how much we can do. All right, so I made my 2 papers. So basically what I did was I started with the first step is to create the paper you're going to work with. Okay, so essentially this is what it looks like in the book. As you can see, she has a lot of illustrations, so she shows you step by step how to do it. So there are steps, and then she talks about the steps over here. So basically I made a front and back. This line that I've drawn in the middle of the paper, this is the center line. And what she means by the center line is she means the center of your body. So this would kind of correspond with the center front edge going all the way down. And this is going to be near the center back up at the waist going down. So I'm just going to make note that this first line you're going to draw is center of the body. So that's a line that I usually don't put on my drafts. That's why I want to make a note of it so we know what it is. So this is center of body. Center of body. That's what this is. Center of body. And this is my back, this is my front. So basically if you look at these things, the pants draft is going to be over here and the crotch extensions are going to come out past the center line. Okay, so that's what this line is for. That's the first thing that you do. You need about 6 inches here, and then you need enough on this side that will accommodate your quarter hip measurement plus a little extra. So I did a little bit less because remember this is half scale. When I did my first test, I literally just did it 3 inches because that's half of 6. But just you want to give yourself enough paper, but you don't want to have too much paper. So then the next step is, let's just, maybe we'll do each step for the front and back at the same time. So remember, this is my center front. I'm going to line this up. Oh, also, this line is your waist to ankle measurement plus some extra inches here. So you have a long enough piece of paper for your pants. That's how I got this measurement. So I did my half scale waist to ankle plus 3 inches. All right, so I'm going to start up here like this, and I'm literally going to line up my rectangle with the top line like this. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that's lining up like this. I don't know that you can see through the paper, but basically what I'm doing is I'm going to trace the block. And anytime I trace, it's really kind of helpful just to stick a few pins in there so it doesn't shift when you trace. So I'm going to go ahead and trace my front hip block like this. And then any straight edge I'm going to use my ruler. So there's my front. So this is my center front, my side seam. Okay, and then I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you again on the back. So on the back, I'm going to line up my center back. I'm going to line up all my lines here like this. I'm just going to stick some pins. Just to hold it from slipping. Okay, so let me just and then I'm going to just draw this. And I'm just going to mark my dart like that. Okay. All right. So there is my back hip block. All right, so I did that. So that's the first step. Now then you can take your hip block and you can put it away because you don't need that anymore. The next step is that we are going to label this HL for horizontal balance line. The horizontal line. This is my HL hip line or horizontal line. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to continue the line from the bottom of the hip. We're just going to continue that straight down. That's the next step. So basically what I'm going to do here is I am going to, and I can use the grid on my paper, which is kind of cool. I'll do it this way so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm basically just going to come straight down. And this is one of the benefits of using the gridded paper because I can see how far I am from the grid. I'm just going to draw this all the way down like this. Okay, so there's my front. I'm going to do the same thing in the back. So again, I'm just going to have this come straight down like that. So now I've got my pieces now look like this. Okay. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to, from the side waist point straight down, apply waist to crotch measurement, including the ease, and mark it crotch line. So on my handy dandy chart, I've already figured that out. So where is my waist to crotch with the ease was 6.5 inches. Okay, so waist to crotch. So I'm just going to measure. What did I say? 6.5 inches. 6.5 is right here. So then I'm going to mark this. Well, actually, I'm just going to mark it here for now because she has a really cool tip for creating horizontal balance lines that are truly perpendicular to the center line. All right, so I'm going to do that, mark that one, and then I'm going to mark 6.5 over here. So slightly up right there. Okay, and then after you mark that, we're going to mark the knee line and the hem line. So from here, from the waist to the knee, I had waist 20, it was 22, so it was 11, so 11 inches. So if this was 6.5, then I know I can go 6.5, 11 minus, let me just do the math really quick here. I'm going to use my calculator so I don't make a boo-boo, even though I should be able to, so that's 4.5 more inches. So instead of measuring from there to there, I'm just going to measure 4.5 more over here. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So this is going to be my knee. This is crotch. And then my waist to ankle was 21. So if this is 11, I have to go 10 more inches to get to 21, which puts me right here. Okay, so here's my hem. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to measure 4.5 inches down to get my knee. And then I'm going to measure 10 more inches down to get my hem. Now, this is a cool way to do it. What she does is she folds the paper on the line for the crotch level, and then she makes sure that this line is right on top of itself, right? So there's one, and then she'll take the next one and do that one too. So she's actually folding the paper on itself, lining up this line, and if I just check to see, it's lined up, and that way you get really nice horizontal lines that you know are perpendicular. I thought that was a really cool tip. So I can go ahead and mark this one and this one. So again, this is crotch level. This is a knee. Okay, and I'll do the same thing over here. And again, I'm making sure that I gotta come up a little bit here. Just making sure my center line is matched right up. There's one and two. So I thought that was a clever tip for making sure that your thing is actually really perpendicular to the all right, so now let me mark that. Crotch and knee. All right, so we have crotch and we have knee. So all of this stuff so far is very, very straightforward. You can see we have, basically what we've done is we've basically identified the waist, hip, crotch, knee, hem on both the front and back. Linda's saying on the hip block back, would putting 1-inch darts in alter the back waist measurement, making it tighter, or do you add the difference to the side? Thank you. Yes, so that was a good question. So your waist measurement is calculated on either side of the dart. Now, if you know you need 2 darts, and there are, like, look at the dart chart in the book. Some sizes might recommend 2 darts, you know, or if it's a big amount of dart intake, you can split it into 2 darts. You want to make sure the space here plus the space here equals your waist measurement. This is your waist measurement. Waist measurement. Okay, so you're taking out this. This is not included in the waist measurement. All right, so that was a very good question. Okay, so now the next step, and she shows you right here how to fold to get those horizontal lines. I thought that was pretty clever. So now we have all of that. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to mark the grain line. And the grain line, she has a specific place to put it. So she's asking that what you do is you mark the grain line forward of the center line, and for a size large, the large sizes, which I'm in the large sizes, it's 7/8 of an inch forward of the center line. So basically, if this is our, this is our center of body line, what you're going to do is you're going to find the halfway point at the hip. So let's find the halfway point first. So my halfway point, it's 5 3/4, so that's 2 1/2, 2 3/4, 2 7/8 puts us right here. And then after you measure the halfway point, she wants you to go in closer to the center line based on size. So this is my halfway point right here. I'm just going to make this big so you can see. Can you guys see that? Make sure it's nice and crisp. Okay, I'm going to go in 7/8, which puts me right here, and that's where I'm going to draw my grain line. Now, do I think this is a crucial step? No, I do not. I mean, I think as long as you have a grain line, and actually, for me, I would make it in the middle of the leg between the knee and the hem, but I'm just following along these instructions. So this is going to be our grain line. Grain line. Grain line. And then we'll do the same thing over here. I'm going to find the middle of the hip. So it was what, 2 7/8. And then I'm going to move over, and in this case I'm going closer this way. 7/8 of an inch puts me right here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my grain line right here. Like this. Okay, so that's my grain line. Grain line. Okay, so now I've got my grain line in there. And then the next step is we are going to measure or create a shaped side seam, because right now our side seam is going straight down like a skirt. So we are going to change that, and in this book there is a chart for let me just show you. There is a chart for hold on one second. What am I doing? Am I live? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I touched my mouse and I thought I lost you guys. Sorry about that. So she suggests measuring in, in from the knee, and for the large, it's 1 1/4. So there is a chart. So I'm going to do 5/8, which is half of that for a half scale. So basically what she wants you to do is she wants you to measure in at the knee, and I'm going to use a different color now so you can see. I'll use green for this one. So I'm going to measure in that 5/8, which is the amount she recommends, the side seam. And then at the hem, she wants you to go in 5/8 more than you did at the knee. So if this was whatever this was, you're going to add 5/8 to it, and you're going to go in farther at the hem. So this is making a tapered leg. That's what this is doing. So a half of 5/8, let's just say it's a generous quarter. So first I'm going to go in the 5/8, and then I'm going to go in a generous quarter, and I'm going to mark that line right there. Okay, so that's where that's going to be. So you can probably guess what's going to happen here now. I am going to go from the knee to the hip line, and actually I'll just dash it in. Something like this, right? And I was playing with my hip curve and I realized it's pretty straight, so I can even just use my ruler for this. So here is my shaped side seam, and then over here I'm just gonna do this. Now I do want to say, if you don't want a tapered leg, you can have it be straight. I want you to notice what I did for the other ones was I just went from the knee, whatever I did at the knee. Oh, I guess I did go in a little bit more on the side. I did. I'm sorry. So this is going to go like this. Okay, and then this is our hem over here. All right, so you can see that's the side seam shape now. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing in the front. We're going to measure in 5/8 here, and 5/8 plus a quarter down here, or a generous quarter, so 5/8 plus a generous quarter, like this. And then I'm gonna connect my knee to my hip line here. Okay, and then I'm going to connect the knee to the hem here. So if you don't want to have taper, if you don't want to have taper at the hem, you can always have it go straight. So either way is fine. But basically, that's our side seam. So we did that. Let's see what's next. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to figure out our crotch points, and that's how far the crotch sticks out past our center front and our center back. All right, and basically in the front, you're going to do a quarter. You're going to do a quarter of the hip line. So I'm just going to measure this again. I should know what this is. This is 5 and 5/8. So let me just say, let's say, hold on, let me just we'll say 6 divided by 4. It's 1.4, or like almost 1.5. And then it says you're going to subtract, so whatever okay, so this is an important thing. She talks about 0 point. The 0 point is what the quarter measurement is. So the quarter of my hip is, let's say, 1 3/8 inch. That's my 0 point. You need to know that because later when we do the X, you need to know what the 0 point, the difference is. So it says here, subtract a 1/4 inch and then mark the crotch point. And then if you have the, if your hip tips forward, they're going to say don't subtract anything. So there are different options, but for the average, we're going to reduce that. So actually, I'm going to go with the full 1/2 inch here. So I'm going to reduce it by a 1/4. So I'm going to do 1 1/4 for my crotch extension here. 1 1/4 to here. Okay, so that's my crotch extension past the center line. So I just want everyone to understand that this equals 1/4 measurement of your hip line minus a 1/4 if you have an average figure. If your hip tilts, if you've got the, and I didn't memorize her initials here, so I have to keep going back and looking, but if you've got the tilted forward, then you're not going to reduce this by a 1/4. Okay, so that's how you do the front. The back is half of the hip line. So that's going to be, I mean, if a 1/4 was 1.5, then we're going to just use it's like 2 7/8 is half of my hip for the back. And then it says here, apply this measurement, add, and you're going to add 3/8 to this mark. So instead of shortening it, you're going to add it. So it's the half measurement of your hip line plus 3/8. But if you have a flat seat, that's interesting. They're having you add more. Flat seat, and if you've got the front, if you've got the forward tilting waist, then you're gonna add 5/8. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the 2 7/8 plus 3/8 gives me 3 1/4. Now that's the total measurement, so I'm going to have to divide that in half. Actually, so I have to also, oh no, I don't have to divide it in half because this is the half measurement. So it's going to be 3 1/4. So you understand, I don't have to half scale a measurement I get from using the half scale measurement. So this is 3 1/4. That's my back crotch extension. All right. So now I've got my crotch extensions. The next thing we're going to do, knee line. Oh, you know what? I made a boo-boo. The subtracting part goes at the knee. I'm sorry. Let me go the back. Just hold on one second. The back is half minus the chart on page 3. Let me just double check that. Hold on. So there's a chart for adjusting the back crotch after getting the half hip line, and it says you're going to subtract 3/8 to 5/8 for average figure. So actually, this needs to be, I'm going to just take that 1/4 off that I added. So really, it's going to be right here. So sorry about that. I made a boo-boo. So it's half the measurement minus what it says on the chart on page 3. So I'm right there. Okay, so that takes care of that step. Now we want to create our inseam next. Okay. Hey Cindy, welcome. Okay, so the next step is we're going to create our inseam. So in order to do that, in the front knee line on the outseam to grain line, we're going to apply the measurement from outseam to grain line to the other side of the grain line, and we're going to add 3/8. That's where we get the 3/8 from. So in the front, we're going to measure from the outseam, which is right here, to the grain line, which is right here. That gives me, that's 3 1/8. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to measure 3 1/8 here, but I'm going to add let me see what I did. Let me make sure I do this right. Crotch extension, side to grain line measured to 3/8, so it's 3/16. So it's, I'm getting a different measurement here. It's on the balance line. All right, so I'm getting a different number. When I did it the first time, I got 2 3/4. So then 2 3/4 plus that 3/16. So what happened to my well, so that's 3. All right, that something is wrong here because that can't be. So let me just go back and look at my grain line situation here for 1 second. Hold on. I just want to make sure I didn't screw up my grain line. Okay. It is. It says draw hip line halfway and then measure and mark grain line toward center. Mark grain line toward center. Draw grain line in blue parallel from hip line to hemline. So it is 7/8. So over here, let me just see what I did. This is 5.5, so 2.5. That is 3. Oh yeah, I'm getting the same number there. Hold on a second. That's 3 3/4. This is, yeah, 3 3/8. This is 3 3/8. All right, so I made a little boo-boo on my, hold on. All right, I did these graphs so I wouldn't have a problem, and I'm having a problem. So just give me 1 second to figure out what I did that was wrong. The grain line. Yeah, that's half, and that is definitely over there. 5.5. Crotch extension. Neat. That's very interesting. I think my line somehow got screwed up here. So this is really not my fabulous demo I wanted to show here. So I am going to, and of course I'm panicking a little bit on the inside because I don't understand what I did that was wrong. Let me just compare this to this. I'm going to lay this on top of here, and I'm just going to see where I screwed up. Because technically these should be the exact same. This is all correct. That's correct. Okay, so so I'm just gonna move my grain line over. I don't know what I did, but I think my grain line should be right here. So something got screwed up with my grain line. So for now, I'm just gonna put it over here. And I'm going to go with that, and then I can measure this just to keep going here. So you measure this 2 3/4, and then you measure from here 2 3/4 plus 3/8, which is going to be 3/16. 1 2 3 puts me like right here. Okay, so somehow I screwed up my grain line, and I'm a little bit on the inside, so I'm going to go ahead and make this my grain line. So this is going to be my grain line down here. This is not going to be my grain line. Okay. And then what you do is you take your French curve and you connect this to this. I think I'll keep the whole outside edge going in green. Now this is where I just kept this distance all the way to the hem. So this measures 1/2 inch. So I'm going to do a 1/2 inch over here. And I'm just going to drag this all the way down. So that's my inseam like this. Okay. So now I have my inseam and I have my side seam. Let me do the back. So in the back, we have, let me see if I did this grain line right on this side. Back I have 3 1/4. So I'm going to go to 3 1/4. Oops, down here, sorry. 3 to 3 at the knee. And then it says to add so we're going to add the 3/8, which is 3/16. So I've got 3 here. This is 3 inches here. This is 3 inches here plus 3/16 is here. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to come in like this. Okay, and that gives us, again, I'm going to go ahead and Measure that's 1 1/4, 1 1/4 at the hem. And then I'm just going to connect these. Okay, so now we have the inseam, we have the side seam, and the last step to drafting the pants is to create the crotch points themselves. Before we do that, we're going to add wedges. Now, this is one of the things that I was very attracted to when I was looking at her method, because if you notice, what you actually do when you create a wedge is you actually slash your draft and open it the amount she recommends for your size range. So for my size range, my wedge, and of course there is a chart for that. So the chart for the wedges is over here. So for average and a large hip size, I have 3/4 to 1 inch. So I would go with the 1 inch, and I'm going to divide that in half because I'm doing half scale. So essentially what you're going to do here is on your horizontal balance line, you're going to slash that straight out, and then I'm just going to get some paper and I'm going to tape it to the lower half of my, what I cut here, like this. I'm just going to tape it down. And then I'm going to measure up the 1/2 inch, because remember, I'm half scaling it, so I'm not going to do the full inch. I'm going to do a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a mark right here for 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to spread this much, and I'm going to tape it in place. Okay. Oh, let me get a little hinge over here so it lays flat. I'm going to tape that down. So these wedges are something that I feel like are unique to this Minott method. I have not seen that before. So you can see we've added all of this length. So what is this compensating for? We're adding this length because the height of our hip block was our hip, waist to hip, right? Our center back obviously is higher than the side seam because our behind is over here. We have to make room for that. So this is a suggestion. That's how much we added. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the front. So again, we're just going to cut straight through on the hip line, create a hinge. I'm going to get myself some paper. And I'm going to stick it in here. And again, I'm just going to tape down the bottom edge first. Oops. And then I'm going to measure up that 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to just make that wedge in the front like that. Okay. Okay. All right, so this is the wedge for the front. Now, the last step is to create the crotch curves, and then we're done. So let me go over to the crotch curve section. And basically what we're going to do here is we are going to create, I'm going to create a little square here And I'm going to do it in my little pen because this is not part of the draft, but it helps make the diagonal line. So I've got a little square here. See that? And then I'm going to go diagonal like this. This is going to be my guideline, like that. Okay, and there is a specific length for this diagonal line depending on your shape and your size. So if I go back and look at the chart, the diagonals for a large size is 1 1/4 to 1 3/8. Make sure you can see that. Okay, so 1/4. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at there, the diagonals. Okay, there's a chart. So I'm going to do 1 1/4, which would give me 5/8 half scale. So I'm going to go ahead and measure 5/8 up this diagonal line. And that's really going to be where it is. This is where my diagonal line is ending. And actually, now that I have that, I'm just going to erase the rest of this to keep it neat. That's why I'm using an erasable pen. So that's the guide there. And then in the back, the back is 1/8 of an inch longer than the front. So if I did 5/8 in the back, I'm doing 3/4 in the front. So again, I'm just going to make my little box here, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because it's bigger. So I'm going to do a 2-inch box here, just so I can get my diagonal. I guess it doesn't need to be that long. And then it's 3/4 of an inch because it's 1/8 of an inch longer. So actually, I guess I didn't need a 2-inch box. But there's my guide. And again, I'm just going to erase all of this so it doesn't make a mess on my draft. All right, so I've got that. And then the next step is going back over to the draft. Okay, so what we're going to do is in the front, okay, so in the front, we are going to place a ruler along the center front line. Now, remember, since we did this wedge, this is pivoted slightly. Now, if you remember body-specific adjustments that I talk about, an angled center front is good if you have a defined waist, but if you don't, straighter is better. However, this is based on my actual measurement, so I'm going to leave it and see. So the next step to creating the crotch is to just extend this line down. So you can see it kind of pulls away from the other one because it's on an angle. And then you're going to measure, you measure 2 inches up from the end of your diagonal line up, and then you create the curve. I'm measuring 1 inch up because it's half scale. So if I just measure, and actually I'm going to extend this down a little bit more because it needs to get all the way down there. So let me just bring it down a little bit more. So 1 inch from here puts me here. So I'm going to basically come down and create the curve, whoops, like that. So you're touching that line and you create the curve. So that's how you create the front. And in the back, the same thing, although the angle isn't as big in the back, you're going to just extend this down a little bit. Okay, and then this is 1.5 inches because it's 3 inches, and that actually worked out to be perfect. So basically, we're just gonna create the back curve like that. So now we have our curves, and then there's one other thing that she has you check. There's my back. This is my front. Okay. Then what she has you do is she has this thing called the X section. section. The X section is basically the back crotch curve, and if you follow along with me, you know I did bottom up pants fitting where I adjusted the inseam to agree with the side seam according to your measurements, and you slid this section up or down to get the inseam to agree with your inseam. So this is a similar situation here, but basically what she wants you to do is she wants you to create your back crotch curve to be slightly lower than the front. And I think there is some debate in that in terms of, you know, whether the inseam should be different lengths or not. So I'm going to do it and we're going to see what happens. But I like my inseam to crotch level to be the same front to back with pants. But let's just see what she's saying here about this X section. Where is the X section? Wedges. Where did my little X section go? All right, so basically what she wants you to do is she wants you to lower it a certain amount based on, why can't I find it in my book now? Oh, here it is, X section. All right, so the difference between, where is on here? Move the X section up or down until the difference between the back and front crotch line is the same as the amount of the back crotch point subtraction. So remember when we took a little bit off based on the chart, so we reduced the back crotch by whatever it said in the chart for our size. So mine was 3/8, so I did 3/16 there. So basically she wants me to slide this section down so it is that much lower than the front. So I'm going to go ahead and draw myself the X section, which is halfway between the knee and crotch here. I'm going to draw a horizontal line like this. And then I'm going to, you know, come up here like this, up to the hip line like this. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to cut the hip line, and I'm going to cut this line. And I am going to lower this X section. This is what she calls the X section. I'm going to lower that 3/16, which is a teeny tiny little amount. Like it's a scant quarter. So I'm just sliding it down to there like that. Okay. And then I'm just going to stick that back together. All right, and I'm going to have this little gap up here, which I'll just use a piece of green to show you. So essentially, if I stick this right here, you can see that's the amount that I lowered it. Where this little green strip is. Okay, so I lowered the X section, so it's now, this is now 3/16 lower than the front. In a full size, it would be 3/8. All right, so we're going to try it because, again, I'm trying these drafts based on the instructions, and I'm really trying not to, you know, inject my own opinions here. I'm just following the instructions from the draft. So you can see now we have the pants draft. So I'm just going to make it bigger here. And I think, let me just use my big black marker. I just want to mark the entire outside edge now so you can see what the final draft looks like. So you can see the final shape. Oh, I forgot one thing. One thing I forgot. She has you move your center back in a half an inch. And I'm going to go ahead and do half of that. So it's going to be like this much. So she has you do this to make an angle. Now, and again, I forgot to do that. I'm sorry. So this goes like this. It's going to be like this. Okay, so that's the actual draft. It's not this. Now, that's cutting some of the back off. She doesn't say to add it here, so I'm just going to leave that. But remember, the way I do my fitting is I'll always have an extra fitting allowance there. But essentially, this is the draft. Dirt. Now, I'm not going to sew together the halved draft. I'm going to take these, scan them in at the printer, and then I'm going to increase them by 200%, and I'm going to try the full size. All right, so there is my completed back. And then my front is let me just draw the front. Whoops. Now I'm going to walk these seam allowances to make sure everything matches, obviously. You have to add seam allowance. There is no seam allowance, so you want to add your seam allowances. We're going to try this, and we're going to see how it fits. So here's my entire draft. All right, so there's the front draft and the back draft. And if I lay this on top of my, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut this one out and let's lay it out on my first version just to make sure there's no huge differences here. All right, so I'm just going to cut this out. And I'll add seam allowances to the other draft and I'll cut it out with the thing. I just want to see how close I am to repeating my exact performance when I was working by myself and taking my time. This blows my mind that this little half scale actually does blow up to be a full size when you make it 200%. Right, so let's check this out. All right, so this looks really good. It matches almost perfectly. And where it doesn't match is up here where I shifted the seam. So I'm pretty happy with that. You'll see how, oops, see how this sticks out farther. Remember I shifted the side seam. So that matches pretty well. Let's just cut out the back and see what that looks like. So I am going to go back and try to figure out where I screwed up my grain line. So I apologize for effing that up, but something happened. But in the big scheme of things, you know, I would double check everything. If something looks like it's not working out, go back and read and, you know, try to see what happened. Let's put this one with this one. Okay, so this one lines up really well too. The difference, that's all matching basically. Oh. so I have a little, this one is, something is off on this one. It's a little, this is the thing. Well, that's interesting. Oh, all right, so this has a bigger horizontal balance line to crotch because I realized after I drafted that I missed the inch there. So anyway, it's very close. It's just this is dropped because if I line this up, it matches, but then if I pull it down, that matches. But I forgot that I made a mistake with my vertical hip to crotch level, and then I realized it and I fixed it over here. So it was a lot. I will admit to you, it was a lot going from half scale to, you know, taking the time to make half scale to full scale. That can get a little confusing when you're trying to, you know, have all these million measurements. But basically, these drafts are very similar, and I'm really excited to try them out. Let me just see what people are saying. Christine says, Happy New Year, Jen. I'm watching from start, so I'm an hour behind. And Carla says, so I understand you will take the half scale to the printer and have them increase it and print to 200%. That's what you can do. Or you can blow it up yourself in Illustrator, or you can blow it up yourself in your grading software and then print it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a neat copy of this. I'm gonna make it neat, take it to the printer. She's gonna scan it in for me. So I have the half scale. I'm gonna draw on it, and then I'm gonna bring it into my grading software and make it 200%, and then I'm gonna try it on. So that's what I'm gonna do to test it in full size. But remember, we already did a little bit of a test because I took my little half scales that I drafted, right? And then I put them into I did that exact process. And because they're small pieces, I did the whole thing at home. I just put them in the printer, in my copier, copied them, brought them into Illustrator, drew them, and then graded them or expanded them to 200%. So I know it's accurate because I've done it with the hip block. So I think we'll be okay there. Kim says, I love this and want to try it. If this works, it would be wonderful. Have to go. We'll watch recording later. All right, well, keep us posted, Kim. I used this method a long time ago when I first got the books, and the drafts do come out close. Now, that was probably 12 or 15 years ago that I made my first Jan Minott pattern. I'm better at doing it now, obviously, because I have that much more experience, so we'll see how it comes out, but I'm excited about it. Linda says, I think you did shift the grain line a bit, saying it didn't matter so much where it was. Oh, yes, I was saying when I was reading the instructions to shift the grain line, what I was talking about is the position of that grain line for me doesn't matter, but in the draft it does matter because you need to shift it the amount so then you can measure with the left side and then use it to get the other side for the knee inseam. So it does matter. So that was a boo-boo on my part. Yeah, so it does matter. So follow the instructions, you know, and take your time. When I took my time and did it, I made it went much smoother. And I did draft the first set over the course of a few days. So I took my time and I made sure I understood everything that was going on. So, at the end of the day, that grain line thing was a little bit whiffy. But if something's not working, I will tell you, the original instructions, had you first make a rectangle. So let me show you this one thing, and let me show you one mistake I did make because of the extra box. So see how there is a red rectangle around here? So she has you make a rectangle first and then draw the center line in the rectangle. I didn't draw the rectangle when I showed you guys how to draft. There is no extra rectangle because look where I put the crotch extension for the back. I put it on the end of the red line, not over here on the center balance line. So when I was trying to figure out how to get the crotch extension, which I drew way over here, I drew it against this border line that's nothing. And then I thought to myself, oh my God, how am I gonna get that? Let me just show you what I mean. All the way to the knee like this. Like it would have been this really rough angle from here to here. Like it was way out here. And then I rechecked everything and I realized this should have been drawn over here. So this is the correct line. That's the boo-boo line. So that's why I didn't say to put the rectangle around the pattern, because it just screwed everything up. I mean, I made a big mistake there. So there you are. See, and I would make notes. Like I made notes about everything I did as I went along as well. Okay, so Tracy Frost, hi, all the way from Cape Town. Hello from Cape Town. Welcome, welcome. All right, and Kay says, thank you for doing this, Jen. I happen to have this book, but I haven't really done anything with it. Thank you. I am going to commit to teaching myself to draft patterns. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Well, this is the month of pattern draft. I highly recommend you guys take advantage of the fact that we're doing this, because if you try it during the week and you have questions next week, you can certainly ask me questions. So we'll spend the first 5 or 10 minutes talking about this draft, if anyone wants to talk about things that happen with them. So we can definitely, talk about it. All right, Carla says, what printer company do you use? Can you go to FedEx or UPS store? I think Staples prints big scale. I have a local family-owned printer called Action Blueprint right in my town. And literally, I go out my street, I go down a half a mile, I take a left, I go another half a mile, and it's right there. So I run back and forth to the printer all the time. So I do not have a plotter, and I do not use Staples. I use Action Blueprint in Manchester, Connecticut. I feel like I'm part of the family over there. I wouldn't be able to do my business without them. I love them. They print all my patterns. They print anything. But I will tell you, if you have Illustrator, you can create, PDFs on 7.5 by 10-inch art boards, and you put a border around the art board and then print those out and tape them together. So you can actually, if you'll notice, this is how I see this. Look at this really closely. I printed this at home. See these dashed lines? Those are the lines from my, to line up the art boards. Okay, so this was 4 pages of standard paper that I taped together to get these. I did these over the weekend when the printer was closed. So sometimes I'll print things at home and I'll just create a PDF like the kind you could print at home, or I'll go to my local printer. But if you Google in your area, wide scale printers, you should, I'm sure every town or most towns will have some sort of printing shop where you can get things printed. Okay, so, all right, does anybody else have any questions? Thank you for hanging out with me. This was like almost an extravaganza of a Fab Fit Friday. I was super excited. I wish it had gone a little smoother. I'm sorry that I effed up that grain line, but it's really exciting, and I really enjoyed working with this method. You want to be really careful taking your measurements, because the measurements are what drive the draft. So if you have someone who can help you, especially with those waist to floor measurements, it's hard to do those yourself. I was doing them with the number 1 hovering on the floor, like touching the floor, so I can just read the number up at my waist. But it is a little fussy to take measurements yourself. So, you can probably get your sewing friend to help you, or someone in your house to help you take your measurements. I think the better your measurements are, obviously, the better your draft will be. But I am excited to see how this comes out. And we will be doing the big reveal on the last Fab Fit Friday of the month. So it's going to be a really fun month. Next week, we are going to be drafting from the Don McCunn book. This is another good one. you know, he's got a little bit of a different slant on it than, I'm staying away from the Helen Joseph Armstrong book for this series because that's a standard that I think a lot of people have tried. So I'm finding like different or new and different ways to do it. So Don McCunn is up next week. There is a link to this if anyone wants to get this. But it's also a very good book and there's a lot of fun in here. So that's what we'll be doing next week. And then we can compare the drafts. So that'll be lots of fun. Carla says, love the information. I don't know. I didn't know I would be interested in pattern drafting. I am. Yay! Pattern drafting is my favorite thing to do. And if I can turn anybody else into, you know, someone who's interested in pattern drafting, oh, you make my day. So please take your time with it. If you have questions, you know, please post those and let me know or ask me next week. Also, if you guys don't, and you may already know this, but I do have a YouTube Insider Club where we meet every Sunday, the last Sunday of the month. There's a Q&A in there, so that's another good place to post questions and comments, you know, if you want to join us there as well. And then all my videos are organized by category and order of operations. So there is a link to my YouTube club in this description of this video as well. It's been a lot of fun. That club has been a lot of fun. I look forward to the last Sunday of every month because we get together and the ladies are making friends with each other and they're realizing they live near each other and they're getting to meet each other outside of the screen. So it really is fun. So Kay is asking about the Don, I was thinking about the Don McCunn book. Okay, I do have the Connie Crawford book. So someone gifted me a whole bunch of books, and let's just, since you're asking, and since you're still here, I'm gonna go ahead and look and see what the pants draft looks like in the Connie Crawford book. Hold on, that'll be interesting to see. Let me see. Okay. All right, so it looks like, let's see, Connie Crawford. She's like a blast from the past. Hold on one second. Let me just go over here. Let me get this so you can see it. Hold on. All right, I think you can see that, right? I'm going to push myself a little bit farther off here so I'm not in the way. All right, so pattern draft. All right, so she starts, okay, so she does it very similarly to Helen Joseph Armstrong, and also the last one I'm going to do is the new Nick Veros pattern making book. But this side-by-side method is very, very common. That's why I was kind of excited to try the Jan Minott, because it's different. But basically, this is how she does it. It seems very similar to so she's so she does her crotch extension. The front is a quarter of the hip, half in the back. So she uses the same formula. So, and that might be like an industry standard now, where the front crotch curve is a quarter of the hip measurement and the back is a half. But it does look very similar. I'm going to compare it to the, when I do Nick Veros, I'll keep these side by side to see. So we'll see. But it does seem very similar. So yeah, it does seem very similar. So these side-by-side drafts are very popular because if we look, let's just look and see. Let's get a little. Oh wait, so Kay says I got the Crawford book on eBay, only used it instructions for making a 2-piece sleeve from 1 piece. Really easy to do. I mean, her instructions do seem very easy to follow. I just want to look at the pants for Don McCunn here. I haven't been in this book yet. Like, I don't know where it is. Let me just give you a little preview of what the pants. So see, he's not like a side by side. Like, he does 2 separate lines, kind of like Jan Minott. So we'll see. I don't know. We're gonna see. He takes different sitting and standing measurements. This is gonna be a little bit different. So we'll see. Plus, he pivots. He does a similar thing where he pivots the pattern. So we'll see. I have to really delve into this. I'll be spending some good quality time over the weekend with this book, but I think this is a little bit different. I don't know. We'll see. So anyway, we're doing this next week. I will take this book and I will keep it side by side with this book. This is the new Nick Veros book, which I really like. It's got a lot of cool designs in here if you like to draft patterns. Lots of fun in here. So he does them side by side, just like the Connie Crawford book and the Helen Joseph Armstrong book. You know, he's got hip and crotch depth. He's got all similar lines. So we'll see. See, it's a side by side. So I'll compare the Connie Crawford with the Nick Veros when I get to that after I do the Don McCunn book. So that's what's happening this month. And honestly, I'm going to try to come up with a theme every month like I'm doing now, because I think this is a lot funner than me trying to like come up with little projects and then, you know, doing multiple projects in a month. I'm going to try to do one major theme every month. So this is pants drafting this month. I'm really excited. Okay, so you're asking about Susie Furrier, released a new book last year. I don't know a single thing about her. I've never looked at her work. I've never purchased any of her books. I don't know who she is. I mean, I know who she is, but I've never looked at her book. Maybe I could research it. But remember, I have a 4th surprise pants drafting method I'll be sharing with you as well later. So this is going to be very exciting. But definitely, you know, post if you guys have books that you like to use, or if you come across something you think is cool in pants fitting, definitely share those things, because, you know, I love everything and anything I can find about pants fitting and pants drafting. So this has been so fun for me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope everybody had a happy New Year's celebration. 2026 is going to be a good one. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week for Don McCunn pants draft on Friday. And I will have a Fit Tip Tuesday, so and possibly a cool tool. We'll see. But lots of fun for next week. So, oh, okay, I know she has classes on Craftsy. I've taught on Craftsy as well. But I never looked at her classes, but I've heard good things about her. I mean, I just haven't had the chance to delve into her. But in any case, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. Karen wants to set her alarm. It's 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. All right. Set your alarms. I'll see you guys next week, and thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful weekend, wonderful rest of your day, and adios.